And so what we're going to do is introduce legislation to require that every single person who registers to vote in a federal election must prove that they're an American citizen first. You have to prove it. That will be a new part of the federal law and a very important one. Our bill will establish new safeguards. It'll put us on par, by the way, with virtually every other democracy around the world that also prohibits non-citizen voting. And this is a critical thing for us to do at a very critical time. Our bill also will require states to remove non-citizens from their existing voter rolls. That's a big problem, too. And it will provide access to databases from the Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration to help the states administer this. As the entity that is responsible for regulating federal elections, Congress has this responsibility. We cannot wait for widespread fraud to occur, especially when the threat of fraud is growing with every single illegal immigrant that crosses that border. This is something most Americans are deeply concerned about. The latest poll says 78% of the Americans who are polled say that preventing illegal immigrants from voting in our elections is a top priority. In every place I've gone around the country, whether it's out west, Midwest, Long Island, Deep South, it doesn't matter. Everybody is concerned about this. We have a job to do. Here's what you need to look for, and I'll turn it back to the President. When we put this bill on the floor, you're going to see a record vote by Republicans and Democrats. You'll see that the Republicans stand for election integrity. And then we'll be able to ask this very important question of the Democrats. They're going to have to go on record. Do you believe that Americans and Americans alone should be the ones who vote in American elections? We're about to find out their answer. And I think that will be a very interesting one.
There are real threats we face. There are more extreme voices out there who simply don't want to see people of color in the future of our country. They want to turn back the clock. Voter suppression, election suppression.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about illegals potentially voting in the upcoming election and how that could possibly be a problem that needs to be addressed before the election comes up. Now, clearly and obviously, the left doesn't want this problem addressed for obvious reasons because they want illegals to be able to vote in our elections, okay, because they believe that the illegals will vote blue, okay, and Republicans are trying to protect election integrity to try to prevent Democrats from taking advantage of our laws that are on the books that are supposed to protect our elections from being undermined by illegal immigrants voting. However, these laws are often ignored, they're inadequate, or they're systemically undermined by Democrats. And Democrats, in their response to this, will be, well, it's not really a problem. It's not an issue. Okay, it doesn't happen that much, so therefore we should not focus on the issue. It's not important. This is the same argument that they use when it comes to ignoring the fact that biological men are trying to play in the same sports as biological women, and that presents a problem for biological women. They say, well, it's not happening that much, so therefore we shouldn't worry about it. It's not a big problem. And if you do worry about the problem, then it's because you're hateful and bigoted, right? And essentially, they're saying the same thing about this, okay? They're trying to pretend that because this is not a problem that they see as big enough to worry about, they're trying to pretend that it's so small that we should not address it, even though it is a problem. It does happen. And in fact, it happens at a rate that is enough to affect the outcome of elections. Like, for example, in 2005, the U.S. Government Accountability Office found that up to 3% of the 30,000 individuals called for jury duty from voter registration rolls over a 2-year period in just one U.S. district court were not U.S. citizens. Now, Democrats say that this is not a big deal. What? So what? 3%? Well, 3% would have been enough to change the outcome of the Florida 2000 presidential election. Okay, which we all know that the presidential election overall for the country came down to Florida in 2000. So you can say that it is reasonable to believe that illegal immigrants had an effect on the outcome of who became president of the United States. So it is a big deal, okay? Even if you have just 1%, 2%, 3% of all votes cast, if they're being cast by illegals, people who are not citizens, that is a big deal. You are undermining the vote of an American citizen when you allow that, okay? And we don't even know how big of a problem this is because there's no systemic review of voter registration rolls by states to find non-citizens voting, Okay, so, when you don't have a systemic review, when you have some states that are not requiring IDs, they're not verifying citizenship status, we have no idea how big this problem actually is. And when you have all these illegals that are in this country today that have been allowed by the Biden administration to come in, seems to me to be a recipe for disaster in our elections. So, again, the GOP is essentially proposing a bill that require states to look through their voter registration rolls and to verify that these people actually do have citizenship, that these are all citizens that are registered to vote, and to also require proof of citizenship or some type of ID in order to register to vote or to participate in our elections at all. The Democrats in the mainstream liberal media, of course, they're boohoo, whining, crying racism and bigotry, right? It is racist and bigoted to ensure that non-citizens can't vote in our elections because requiring an ID or proof of citizenship somehow is discriminatory towards black and brown people. And they also threw in elderly people as well, too. So apparently it's ageist as well, too, to require people to show an ID or prove that you're a citizen before you can vote. Take a look.
This is, I feel like I say this all the time, this is insane because it is not legal to vote if you are not a citizen of the United States of America.
Right.
Congress has they already passed legislation for that way back before, I could even, go to school, okay?
Right.
Back in the 90s, I think they did this. Right, Michael? I don't know. Michael's old enough to be my father. We joke about this all the time. So now, according to, after, Donald Trump and his insurrection buddy, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, after they had their meeting, now apparently House Republicans are going to pursue legislation requiring proof of citizenship to vote. My question is, so we're going to show proof to Miss Susie at the polling place? How is Miss Susie going to verify? Are we asking people to bring their papers? This is America. So I just want to know, is this what all of the House Republicans want to lay their chips on, even the 18 that sit in districts that Joe Biden won in 2020?
What strikes me is this is the long tail of a long time Republican effort to make it harder to vote, because they know that some of those requirements, having to show a license, they disproportionately impact communities of color. And what's interesting to me is they also disproportionately impact older Americans.
Oh, yes,
right?
Yes,
so,
yes.
And that's the part that you would think that Republicans would be more attuned to strategically.
But I think the bigger, broader, scarier point, Alicia, is this is all to breed distrust in our elections process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, make no mistake, I still engage with the Republican Party base every single day. I know 70 to 80% of them don't believe Biden really won. But that hardcore base, the 40 to 50%, they no longer trust our elections. Trump is doing this on purpose. Distrust then will lead to violence. It happened in 2020.
Let's just zoom out, though.
Wow, incredible stuff. So I want you guys to understand, according to Big Brain Simone Sanders, because it's already illegal for non-citizens or legal immigrants to vote in our elections. Therefore, that means that it never happens, right? It's not a problem that we should be dealing with, okay? That's just like saying that just because it's illegal to murder somebody, that means that it never happens. The problem is not necessarily the fact that we don't have a law that makes it illegal. Is the fact that the enforcement of the laws is not good enough from the federal government. Just like we try to enforce the law, okay, we try to get justice when somebody is murdered, okay, because it's illegal to murder somebody. We need to try to enforce the law when it comes to making sure that illegals are not registered to vote by forcing these districts to do periodic reviews of their voter registration rolls in order to remove illegals from their ability to vote, just in case they accidentally get registered. But they really shouldn't be accidentally getting registered in the first place, because we should be requiring across the board that, hey, you should have an ID. You should have to prove citizenship before you are allowed to vote, okay? Because every vote matters, okay? Some of these local elections, they're decided by 1 or 2 or 3 votes, okay? Very small margins. So if you got 30 illegals voting in some local municipality or district, then you can have illegal immigrants deciding who becomes mayor, or deciding who becomes county commissioner, deciding who is going to be in a position of power that is running our country, and you have illegals influencing that, people who are not a part of this country. That is a very dangerous thing. So I 100% agree with the GOP trying to help fix this problem by actually adding some teeth to federal enforcement, which should happen. We should be making sure that everybody that is registered to vote is a citizen of this country, and they should be required to have an ID in order to vote. Okay, we have to verify you are who you say you are. I don't understand why that's controversial in this country. I'm not sure exactly why, right? You would think that this would be something that everybody's on board with, but no. Apparently, it's racist. It's racist to require an ID or citizenship in order to vote. Amazing. As if black people or so-called black and brown people are too dumb in order to get IDs. Even though I think that you are required to have an ID to basically do anything, right? To do anything in this country, right? To live, to survive, to get by, you need an ID. Okay, you need to be able to identify who you are. Again, I don't get it, right? I really don't understand it, but here we are, right? This is where we're at in this country. And then on top of that, they said it's discriminatory towards elderly people as well, too. So it's ageist. I guess they just do that in there. And then the dude said that apparently these election integrity bills are going to cause violence, right? It leads to violence by saying that, hey, we should move to make sure that our elections are more secure. That is something that is going to cause violence. Again, ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But, hey, this is just part of some of the ridiculous things that I've learned from the left this week that, it really does blow my mind how these people think so lowly of so-called people of color, right? The left really believes that so-called people of color should be allowed to vote without a license or an ID or verifying their citizenship. Apparently, they should be allowed to drink and drive, which also really blows my mind. They should be allowed to shoot at police. They should be allowed to make domestic terror threats, and they can never be criticized, right? According to Maxine Waters. This is why, again, I'm starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, unity is not possible, right? Maybe it's just not possible because, again, if we can't all agree that we should require some form of ID, some verification that, hey, you are a citizen of this country in order to participate in our elections, if we can't all agree on that, I'm not sure if there's any hope, right? I mean, there's just some people that can't be reasoned with, right? They're not rational, okay? And it is what it is. But, I think that these Democrats have nefarious intentions. I think that they benefit from us having elections that are not as secure as they should be. And they try to take advantage of that. And that's why they get upset and they boohoo, whine, and cry racism over the Republicans saying, hey, we need to have more integrity, okay, more security in our elections because they don't have an argument against it, right? A reasonable and rational person would say, yeah, we should definitely be verifying that everybody that votes is a citizen and has an ID. They are who they say they are. That's just common sense. But again, common sense ain't that common in the Democrat Party nowadays. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.